The last thing Gabriel Hart remembered was the way Evelyn's eyes looked the morning she died. Not afraid, not panicked, but almost knowing. The headlines were quick to write it off. Philanthropist dies in tragic car crash. The world mourned. But Gabriel, billionaire, tech magnate, and the only man who had ever truly loved her, couldn't let it go. The footage from the street camera was accidentally deleted. The eyewitnesses who misremembered, the driver who vanished, and the part no one dared to ask. What was Evelyn doing alone without her security detail in a rundown neighborhood at 6:14 a.m.? For 3 months, Gabriel disappeared from the public eye. The world speculated. Burnout, grief, exile. They were all wrong. He was preparing. Because to find out the truth, Gabriel Hart did the unthinkable. He stepped out of his $88 million mansion, shaved his beard, burned his ID, and became someone no one would look at twice. A frail, dusty beggar with a limp and a haunted stare. His destination, the streets where she died. His mission, to uncover who killed Evelyn and why. But what he would find in the guttered alleys of the city wasn't just betrayal or blood money. He'd discover something far worse, and far more human. This is not a story about vengeance. It's about the price of seeing the world through someone else's eyes, and what you're willing to lose to remember who you really are. The pavement was cracked, and the wind stank of grease and exhaust. Gabriel Hart sat on a milk crate outside a rundown convenience store, his hoodie stained, his jeans frayed, and his once famous face lost beneath a mess of overgrown beard and dirt. His hands trembled just enough to sell the performance. No one looked twice. A month ago, he had delivered a keynote at a summit in Zurich, wearing a $9,000 tailored suit and speaking about the future of decentralized AI systems. Now he held a coffee cup with a few coins rattling inside it, mumbling spare change to strangers who recoiled from his smell. That was by design. The odor was a concoction. Fish oil, cigarette ash, and vinegar. He'd made sure of it. But, behind the act, his eyes scanned everything. The street. The people. The building across from him. It was the alley behind that building where Evelyn's car had been found, flipped and burned, beyond recognition. The coroner said she died instantly. The police called it a freak accident. Gabriel called it bullshit. He remembered the night before it happened, how she'd kissed his forehead and whispered, "Whatever happens tomorrow, remember I love you." At the time, it seemed romantic. In hindsight, it felt like a goodbye. Gabriel watched a group of teenagers walk past him, laughing loudly. One of them dropped a plastic cup. It rolled and hit his foot. "Watch it, hobo," the kid said, barely, looking at him. Gabriel said nothing. He'd prepared for this. He needed to know how people treated the invisible, the unwanted. If someone had planned Evelyn's death to look like a street crime, then the answer was here. In the gutters, the whispers, the people no one cared to notice. "Hey, old man," a voice called. Gabriel looked up. A woman in her late 20s stood over him, her apron dusty from the nearby taco joint. Her name tag read, Elena. "You hungry?" Gabriel nodded once. She handed him a wrapped burrito and a bottle of water. "Don't die out here," she said with a tired smile, then walked away. Gabriel watched her go, then took a slow bite. It was the first warm food he'd had in days, not because he couldn't afford more, but because now he was living in a world where kindness was the rarest currency of all. By the third day on the streets, Gabriel was no longer seen as a stranger. He was just another shadow, just another man who didn't matter, which was exactly what he needed. He made his home under a collapsed billboard 3 blocks from the alley where Evelyn had died. It was a haven for discarded things. Rotting couch cushions, broken bottles, and a half-burnt mattress that stank of old beer and bleach. Gabriel used it all. Each day he changed locations, from the sidewalk near the liquor store to the alley by the pawn shop, always watching, always listening. People talk when they think you're nobody. And one night, someone did. It was nearly midnight. When he heard them, two men smoking behind the convenience store. Gabriel pretended to be asleep as their voices drifted toward him. Just saying boss man wanted it cleaned up. No loose ends. You think the fire was enough? As long as nobody talks. And the lady? She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Gabriel's heart slammed in his chest. The lady. Evelyn. He stayed still, barely breathing. The two men laughed, flicked their cigarette butts, and disappeared. Into the shadows. The next morning, Gabriel followed the scent of oil and rust to a small auto shop wedged between a liquor store and a check-cashing service. A metal sign read, "Dino's Garage. We fix anything except your past." It was the kind of place where questions went unanswered for the right price. Inside, the air smelled like gasoline and sweat. A greasy man in a tank top looked up. "What do you want, Grandpa?" he said. Gabriel reached into his coat and pulled out a half-crushed can. "Aluminum," he said, rattling it. "Trade you 5 cans for a warm corner and a look at your scrap records." The man laughed, wiping his hands on a rag. "You're bold, I'll give you that." But Gabriel was already scanning the clipboard on the counter. 2 days before Evelyn's death, a black Mercedes, the same model she drove, was listed as having bodywork, no plate. The signature was a sloppy LL, like Lester. The ex-security contractor Gabriel was fired 6 months ago. The dots weren't connecting yet, but the pieces were in his hands, and the ghosts were starting to whisper. Gabriel stood outside a grimy bar called The Crossroad, its flickering neon sign buzzing like an old lie trying to stay alive. He'd followed the name Lester from the garage to this place, a half-forgotten dive where bad decisions came to drink. Inside, the stench of old beer and broken promises hung thick in the air. The bartender gave Gabriel a passing glance, barely, registering the old man in torn layers who shuffled to the corner booth. He waited, and then Lester walked in. You could tell the man used to be something, broad shoulders, military-cut hair, and still carried himself like a man who thought rules were for other people. Gabriel recognized him instantly. He let Lester order a drink, flirt with the bartender, and settle into his stool. Then he approached. "Rough night, soldier?" Lester turned, frowning. "You talking to me, old man? You used to run security for Hart Industries. I remember you." Lester blinked, then laughed. "You must have me confused." Gabriel leaned in, voice low. "You signed a service ticket at Dino's Garage, right before Evelyn Hart died. Care to explain that coincidence?" The color drained from Lester's face. Gabriel didn't wait for a response. He dropped a small flash drive on the bar. "That's a backup of traffic cam footage. Shows your car tailing Evelyn's that night. The original files? They were erased, but someone forgot the city keeps redundant servers." Lester grabbed the drive, panic in his eyes. "You can keep that one," Gabriel said, standing. "I have others, and I've already sent copies to people who don't like being lied to." "What do you want?" Lester hissed. "The truth." Lester looked around the bar. No one was listening. But the weight of the past caught up to him. "I was paid to follow her. That's it. Paid good money." "By who?" Lester hesitated. "Someone from the inside. I never saw a name, just a burner account, but they wanted to know who she was meeting. They said she was a threat." Gabriel's fists clenched. Evelyn wasn't a threat. She was trying to protect something. Or someone. As Gabriel turned to leave, Lester called after him. "She met with someone the night she died. A woman. Blonde. Had a cane. Said her name was Celeste." Gabriel stopped cold. Celeste. That name hadn't crossed his path in years. And last he heard, Celeste was dead. But if she was alive and involved, then the conspiracy was deeper than he ever imagined. 2 days later, Gabriel sat on a rotting bench behind St. Agnes Shelter, nursing a bruised rib from a scuffle with a gang of street kids. He had no intention of pressing charges. His mind was far too occupied. Lester's words kept echoing. "Celeste isn't dead, at least not the way you think." Celeste Montclair had been his wife's private assistant. Elegant, sharp-tongued, and fiercely loyal. At least, that's what Gabriel had believed. But 5 months before Elaine's death, Celeste had vanished. The official story? Suicide. Depression. A note was found at her lakeside apartment. The body, however, was never recovered. That detail had never sat right with Elaine. Gabriel remembered now, her restless nights, the hushed phone calls, the way she kept staring at old photos. And now Lester, a man with no reason to lie, claimed he saw Celeste boarding a private car 2 weeks before Elaine's crash, alive, and accompanied by none other than Charles Farrow, Gabriel's longtime business partner. Farrow had been family, Elaine's godfather. A titan of the energy sector who helped Gabriel build his first solar empire, but the more Gabriel reflected, the more his memory peeled back the smiles and handshakes to reveal tension, jealousy, even veiled threats. Armed with a tip from Lester, Gabriel made his way to the old Pier 17 warehouses on the Hudson, now long abandoned. He knew better than to barge in. Instead, he waited across the street, crouched behind a dumpster, watching. Hours passed. Then, just past midnight, a black SUV pulled up. A man in a tan coat stepped out, followed by a woman wearing dark sunglasses and a scarf that covered most of her face. Gabriel didn't breathe. It was her, Celeste, alive. He raised the small camera hidden inside his tattered glove and snapped a photo, his hands trembling. The timestamp glowed on the tiny screen, proof, but as he lowered the glove, another pair of eyes caught his. The driver. Their eyes locked. And that's when Gabriel realized he'd been spotted. He turned and bolted, heart hammering, coat flapping. Behind him, like wings. He heard the door slam. Footsteps chasing. Tires screeching. He didn't stop until he reached the safety of a sewer access gate 2 blocks away, slipping inside just before they rounded the corner. Panting in the dark, Gabriel clenched the camera close to his chest. He finally had proof that everything about Elaine's death was wrong, and someone else knew it too. The morning after the chase, Gabriel emerged from an old utility tunnel 2 miles from the waterfront. He reeked of rust and sewer water, but his mind was crystal clear. He now had 2 undeniable truths. Celeste Montclair was alive, and Charles Farrow was hiding her. But why? The photo he had captured was blurry from the run, but unmistakable. Celeste's face, even half-hidden, was enough. That alone could blow a hole in the official version of her suicide. Gabriel uploaded a copy to a private drive connected to an old alias he once used for international mergers, just in case. Gabriel knew he had to move fast. He needed someone who had once worked closely with Celeste. Someone from before her disappearance. That meant tracking down Aisha Duval. Aisha was a junior media liaison at HeartTech 3 years ago. Quiet, detail-oriented, and the only person Elaine ever trusted with personal errands. Gabriel remembered seeing the 2 women whispering in corners, passing folders Elaine never filed through the usual channels. He found Aisha in Queens, working at a nonprofit legal aid clinic. He waited outside until closing, then approached her near the back gate. His appearance startled her at first, the gray beard, the frayed coat. But when he pulled down the scarf, her eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Hart," she whispered. "Is that really you?" He nodded slowly. "I need your help, and your silence." Inside her modest apartment, Gabriel showed her the photo of Celeste. Aisha's face turned pale. "Oh my God, I knew something was off." Gabriel leaned forward. "Talk to me." Aisha hesitated, then began. 6 months before the crash, Celeste told me she was being followed. She thought someone was tapping Elaine's calls. She said Elaine had found something buried in Farrow's offshore accounts. Bribes, maybe. I didn't believe her at first. She retrieved a USB stick from her drawer. "Celeste gave me this, said to hide it. I didn't even look. I was scared." Gabriel took the drive with trembling hands. The label on it was cryptic. Kite String Protocol, E.M. Elaine Montclair, his wife. Gabriel looked up. Aisha! They killed her, didn't they? Aisha's eyes welled with tears. I don't know who they are, but yes, I think they did. Outside, a black car idled across the street. The driver wasn't checking his phone. He was watching the building. Gabriel locked the apartment door behind him and drew the curtains tight. Aisha sat nervously on the edge of the couch, her hands trembling. He connected the USB stick to his old encrypted laptop, one that hadn't touched Wi-Fi in over a decade. As the folders loaded, his heart began to pound. No ransomware, no trap, just files, hundreds of them. At the center, a folder labeled Kite String. Inside were financial spreadsheets, Shell Corporation charts, email archives, and audio recordings. Celeste and Elaine had uncovered something massive, illegal slush funds moving through Hearttech's international subsidiaries. But it wasn't just financial fraud. The money trail led to a private security firm, Argon Axis, whose operatives had been linked to civil unrest contracts in developing countries. Gabriel's blood turned cold. Elaine had always been driven by justice. She must have threatened to go public. One file stood out. An audio memo. The timestamp. 3 days before Elaine's death. Gabe, if you're hearing this, I didn't get the chance to tell you myself. Celeste and I found something that could get us both killed. But it's bigger than us now. If I die, it's not an accident. Protect her. Expose them. Kite String will keep you safe. If you follow it to the end. Gabriel closed his eyes, her voice both a knife and a balm. Aisha spoke softly. What now? Before he could answer, the laptop blinked. A remote login attempt. Someone was trying to access the USB in real time. Gabriel yanked the device out. Too late. Seconds later, the lights in the apartment flickered. The power went out. Aisha gasped. They're here! Gabriel pulled her toward the fire escape. We need to go. Now. Outside, the black car had disappeared, but another was pulling up. Gabriel and Aisha slipped down the alley behind the building, blending with the early evening shadows. As they moved, he tapped a code into his burner phone. It triggered a dead drop signal. A flash drive with a copy of Kite String was now on its way to a safe house in Zurich. As they ran, Aisha asked, Do you trust anyone in the company? Gabriel's jaw tightened. There's one man left, the only one Elaine ever feared. A beat passed. Charles Farrow? No, Gabriel replied grimly. Someone worse. They found shelter in a shuttered art gallery downtown, once owned by a close friend of Elaine's. The building had been empty for months, but the back room still had a cot and a stash of instant coffee. As the city pulsed outside, Gabriel finally spoke the name that had haunted him for years. Martin Vex. Aisha looked up sharply. Your godfather? The one who mentored you at Hearttech? Gabriel nodded grimly. He's more than that. He's the architect of our overseas deals, the man who taught me how to hide the rot under polish. And he's the only one who could have given the kill order on Elaine, without leaving a trace. But why? Aisha whispered. Gabriel turned toward her, his expression a mix of pain and steel. Because she was going to expose the contracts that built his empire, and because I let her get too close to the truth. He paused. She never feared Farrow. She feared Martin. As if summoned by name, Gabriel's burner. Phone buzzed. A single message. Stop digging, Gabriel. This is your final warning. MV. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then crushed the phone under his boot. They spent the night reviewing the rest of the Kite String files. Among them was a video. Grainy, time-stamped the night of Elaine's death. It was drone footage, apparently leaked by a whistleblower. It showed the intersection, the black van, and the precision with which the crash was executed. It wasn't random. It was a hit, a calculated, choreographed murder, and Gabriel's own security detail had been rerouted that night, on orders signed not by Farrow but by Vex himself. Aisha pressed her hand to her mouth, shaking. They made it look like an accident, like she lost control. No, Gabriel said coldly. They took control. His grief began to harden into something else. Not revenge. Not yet. But a cold, unwavering resolve. He opened a notebook. At the top he wrote, "The Cleanse." Below it he listed names, executives, lawyers, contractors, every person tied to Argon Axis and the laundering schemes. And at the top of the list, Martin Vex. "We dismantle the entire network," Gabriel said. "But how?" Aisha asked. "You're just one man." Gabriel's eyes narrowed. "No, I'm a man who built this empire with Vex, and I know exactly how to take it from him, piece by piece." The morning fog still blanketed the Zurich skyline when Gabriel and Aisha arrived at Langdon & Frost, a discreet private banking firm nestled inside a granite high-rise. Gabriel wore a tailored overcoat, his beard trimmed, his gait once again the gait of a man who had nothing to fear because he had nothing left to lose. "Are you sure this will work?" Aisha asked beside him, scanning the sleek lobby nervously. Gabriel didn't blink. "This bank handles Vex's silent accounts, offshore assets, shell companies, golden parachutes for his fall guys. We freeze this node, we cut oxygen to his inner circle." Inside the boardroom, Gabriel met Clive Wexler, an aging compliance officer who once owed Elaine his life. Now he repaid that debt with a single keystroke, pulling up ledgers tied to Aetheris Holdings, one of Vex's dummy fronts. Aisha stared at the numbers. "That's over $280 million. Gabriel nodded. "All routed through charities, all bleeding into arms deals and political bribes." Clive hesitated, finger hovering over the transfer locks. "If I do this, I'll be named. You understand?" Gabriel reached into his coat and handed Clive a thin envelope. "Inside is a new identity. You'll be on a boat to Finland before this hits the wires." Clive didn't ask questions. He pressed enter. In less than 3 minutes, $280 million was frozen. Back outside, Aisha whispered, "One blow doesn't bring down a monster like Vex." Gabriel pulled out a small device from his pocket, a modified pager. Good thing this wasn't the only strike. He pressed a button. At that exact moment, across 3 continents, servers belonging to Argon Axis were hit with a coordinated data breach. Whistleblower files, client lists, confidential memos, all leaked in real time to the media. Within minutes, hashtags trended. Headlines exploded. "Global elite firm. Implicated in arms bribery scandal. Expose. Secret empire behind political coups." Gabriel watched it all unfold from a park bench near the lake, the cool breeze biting at his face. Then his phone buzzed, a hidden number. He answered silently. A deep, familiar voice spoke. "I underestimated you, Gabriel. It was Vex. You've made this personal." Gabriel's reply was ice. "It always was. You just didn't see it, because she never screamed." There was a pause. Then the line went dead. Gabriel turned to Aisha. "He's coming. He won't fight in court. He'll fight in blood." Aisha's voice trembled. "So, what now?" Gabriel's jaw tightened. "Now, we expose the one person who helped him start all this. The person I've avoided confronting." He turned his gaze toward a distant building, the Hearttech headquarters. "My own brother." Gabriel stood before the towering glass of Hearttech Global's executive office. The building bore his family name, polished steel and obsidian panels rising from the skyline like a monument to power. He had built the foundation, but the man inside now controlled the throne. Damien Hart, the younger brother, the golden child, the one who had once clung to Gabriel's leg during storms and sobbed after nightmares. Now CEO, now predator. Gabriel didn't knock. He pushed the doors open and Damien was already standing, suit impeccable, smile venomous. "Well," Damien said smoothly. "The beggar rises." Gabriel didn't return the smile. "Save it." Damien stepped forward, arms open. "You could have just called, Gabe. No need for theatrics." Gabriel's eyes darkened. "Elaine died on your watch. You funded Vex. You signed off on the AI traffic rerouting project. used in her death. Damien's face flickered, but he recovered quickly. A tragedy. But let's not pretend she was the target. Gabriel stepped closer. Then who was? Damien's smirk dropped. You. Always you. You left. You built this empire, then ran off into seclusion like some broken monk. You let this company rot. I cleaned it up. You sold your soul, Gabriel said coldly. And hers. Damien's eyes flared. She was collateral, necessary. You loved her more than anything, and it made you blind. You stopped being ruthless. The board needed someone with teeth. Gabriel's fists clenched. So you made me suffer to prove a point? Damien circled him slowly. I made us survive. Do you think I liked it? Watching her die? Knowing it? Would break you? But I had to. Vex offered me the merger. A seat with global players. We could have ruled the world. Together. Gabriel pulled a flash drive from his pocket and dropped it on Damien's desk. Every wire. Every memo. Every closed-door deal. The world knows now. And you. He leaned in. You're just a broken boy playing king in a burning palace. Damien's voice cracked. You're my brother. Gabriel nodded once. And that's why I'm not dragging you out in cuffs, but tomorrow morning your resignation will be public. If you don't send it, the evidence goes live, with your face on every screen. Silence. Then Damien lowered his gaze. Fine. Gabriel turned, his voice low. She loved you too, you know. She once said you were the only family she trusted, to protect me. You failed her. He walked out without waiting for a reply. Damien was left alone, surrounded by glass, gold, and ghosts. The sun hung low over the Hudson River as Gabriel stood alone on the rooftop of the Elaine Hart Memorial Shelter, the latest project under the Hart Foundation, funded entirely from his personal wealth. It had been 3 months since Damien resigned. 3 months since Gabriel had unearthed the truth, exposed the rot, and nearly dismantled his entire empire. But instead of chaos, something remarkable had taken its place. Healing. The shelter behind him was full of women and children who had once been unseen, forgotten. The same way he had felt during his months in disguise. The same way Elaine used to say the world treated the broken. Fixing a system, she once whispered in bed, starts by sitting where the pain is. Now he understood. Gabriel turned as Sister Irene, the kind-hearted woman who had once offered him soup while he posed as a beggar, approached with a soft smile. You kept your promise, she said, eyes misty. Gabriel nodded. And more to come. He looked out over the city skyline, once a monument to his power, now a canvas for redemption. That morning he had received a final email from Damien. No threats, no apologies, just 2 words. I understand. Gabriel didn't reply. Some ghosts were better left buried. What mattered now wasn't vengeance. It was a legacy. Downstairs, a group of children laughed in the courtyard. One girl, maybe 7, ran past chasing a soccer ball. Her hair bounced in the wind. Her laughter was the same pitch Elaine's had been when she watched fireworks. Gabriel felt the ache swell in his chest. But for the first time, it didn't crush him. It moved him forward. Later that evening, he addressed the press, not to brag, not to reclaim his name, but to announce a new chapter. I'm not here as a billionaire. Today, he said, I'm here as a man who finally understands that wealth means nothing, unless it changes something for someone else. He paused, letting the silence settle. I lost the woman I loved, and in my pain, I nearly became the man she feared I would. But instead of revenge, I chose something harder. He looked into the cameras. I chose mercy. The video went viral overnight. People who had once judged Gabriel as aloof now saw a man transformed by grief, by truth, and by a love that death could not erase. In the end, Gabriel Hart didn't just expose a conspiracy, he became a symbol. Of justice without cruelty, of power without arrogance, and of a love that lived on, not in glass towers or bank accounts, but in soup kitchens, children's laughter, and a legacy that would outlive him forever. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.